This is one of the most violent wars right now, and I bet you haven't heard about it. Let's talk about Myanmar. Myanmar is sandwiched in between India and China and it's been in a bloody civil war since 2021, when the military overthrew the elected government in a coup. The country is also known as Burma, by the way, and many people who are against the military call it Burma because that was its original name before the military changed it to Myanmar in their first coup back in 1989. Now the military might be losing, which is good, but it doesn't necessarily mean that things there will be stable. Let's walk it back. Geek out with me. After the military coup in 2021 happened, peaceful protests broke out and the military chose to respond with indiscriminate violence. To date, they've killed nearly 50,000 people, almost 27,000 have been detained, and nearly 3 million people have been displaced. This is a fairly well-equipped military, so that means they have fighter jets and rockets at their disposal that they've been pounding their own civilians with. So this brutal response resulted in the creation of a nationwide armed resistance movement. And young Burmese people who had experienced a taste of democracy started to join ethnic rebel groups to fight the military. People like doctors and engineers and teachers and DJs, they are all sacrificing their lives to fight for democracy. And over time, the rebels have been able to take control over one city after the next. In fact, they've taken over dozens of towns and they now claim to control over half the country. Now the military is facing low morale, troop defections, and budget constraints. It even abducted and forced Rohingya Muslims to fight on the front lines, like the same people the military committed a genocide against in 2017. Now, I don't want to imply that victory is near. There are numerous rebel groups and they're not all united. And the country in general is suffering because of this war. Millions have been thrown into poverty. It's become a lawless state, so crime and drugs have proliferated, and there are landmines everywhere. And it's not certain the rebels can take the capital or center of the country yet, which means that Myanmar could end up fracturing and splitting up, which could only increase the chaos further, especially in a country with so many ethnic groups. There are 135 recognized ethnic indigenous groups in Myanmar. I wanted to share this story with you, in part because it gets almost no coverage, but also because it seems to be turning into a quasi-proxy war. The US and others have imposed sanctions on the military, while the Russian government has been sending lethal weapons to them. And the US has been sending non-lethal aid to the rebels. This whole scenario is very reminiscent of Syria in 2014, when the US was sending aid to fractured rebels there, and Russia stepped in and saved the Syrian government. And given Russia's alliances that it's forming, with North Korea and Iran, for example, it feels like Russia is trying to expand its little club of baddies. My concern is that unless the international community and UN focus more on this issue, Russia could turn things there into a very long and bumpy road.